I need to explain how an LLM, a large language model like Claude or ChatGPT, actually works, and the very specific change that's happened now that we have the new class of models, Claude Fable 5 and ChatGPT 5.6 Sol. So AI is a genius, especially these new models. They're so smart. They're brilliant at every single task. But the issue is, if you're just prompting these models, they essentially have amnesia between every session. They simply forget what you've told it. The context window on chats, whether it's in Claude Code or whether it's just in a normal chat, tends to fill up. And that's what leads to error messages and low quality responses. Now, in the past, the only way to use AI was really prompting. Even just a few months ago, you'd have to manually prompt. Even if you had a memory system plugged in, you'd need to keep creating new chats, and you'd need to rely on yourself to keep giving feedback on the AI so it could better complete a task and take feedback into account. So basically, you would prompt, it answers, you'd check its prompt, you would then re-prompt, and then you'd go around again and again and again. Essentially, you were the loop to get the outcome that you wanted. You had to control that entire process. And the reason prompt engineering was the skill is because the better your instruction, the better the way you worded the context to the AI, the better its response. And that's why prompt engineering was a thing. If you consumed lots of AI content throughout 2024 and 2025, and even the start of this year, it was all about prompt engineering. How could you prompt an AI to get the response that you wanted? But what's happened in the last few months is that the models have genuinely gotten really smart. The new breed of models, the Mythos class model in Fable 5, the OpenAI frontier model in 5.6 Sol, and all future models, they excel in a different area. And if you've been actually listening, like I do, to the actual experts, the builders that are actually building Anthropic and have been giving tips on X and giving tips in masterclasses, the number one theme you'll notice is that they're constantly talking about the loops as the best way to use these models. Because these models are now actually smart enough to run unsupervised, and they have much better strategic thinking. So you will actually notice, if you've used Fable 5 or if you've used 5.6, when you actually prompt these models, you don't even need to give that much context anymore. If your memory system is set up correctly, and if you use loop and goal, like I'll show you today, you don't really need to have a perfect prompt. In fact, often I'll give it really messy prompts, but I know I'm engineering it in a way that I'm still going to get the output that I want. It's because these models are so smart. They're smart enough to figure out how to deliver what you want, reading between the lines. So the real reason we're having this conversation today is really because the tech has changed, and how to get the most value out of the tech has shifted. And thus, I do believe prompting as an art form is mostly dead, and it's now moved towards a new model, which is looping. So before, it was you in the middle. You had this genius, which, kept forgetting things on the left, and then you had the work that you needed to complete on the right, and you were essentially just the middleman between these two things. You had to apply what AI told you to the work, and then you had to relay that and give it feedback. And honestly, this is probably how you're still using AI. Statistically speaking, most people are still doing this. They're still in the middle, asking AI for things, then they're applying it to their work, and then they're going back to AI, giving it feedback, and they are basically the loop. Whereas now, you can have a system with these new models with loop engineering, where the AI essentially tries something, it completes the work, it self-corrects, so it's smart enough to know how to critically evaluate the output, and it fixes errors and then tries again. So it actually runs internal loops to complete work. Once again, this is only possible now because the new models are so smart. So before you were in the loop, now you're outside of the loop. You're able to give feedback. Of course, you're still able to course correct, and I still actually encourage that. I often do that, but work is actually now happening autonomously.